There is a reason why a lot of content creators don't agree with what she's doing. Chloe might know that in some cases what she is doing can be deemed as like questionable. The video you're about to see was actually filmed before Chloe released her video surrounding the legal bits and bobs involving an unknown individual. No, that individual is not me. Whether I agree with someone's content or whether I disagree with someone's content, nothing ever warrants bullying. My channel is here to provide constructive criticism and give what I believe to be a balanced and fair opinion. I pride myself in creating a safe space for people despite whether our views align or not. And there is no place for bullying in TFNL, nor should there be a place for it in the world. As somebody who has been bullied in the past, I understand how damaging and harmful it can be. I have no time for it, and I really hope that nobody who I ever feature in my content ever feels bullied by my opinions. I just wanted to say that before we start, but now we'll crack on with the video. In the description there should be a link to a free program template. There's no one best way to program, it's essentially what's best for you and whatever allows you to remain most consistent, but I've put together a free template to hopefully help you in structuring that program. So yeah, that's down below and it's completely free. But now it's video time. This is the one we have been waiting for quite a long time. It's the Chloe Ting video. I have covered Chloe before in an old video, but to be honest, I wasn't particularly happy with that video. My opinion does change when I'm presented with new evidence or whatever it may be. I do often like to keep older videos as almost like a display of personal growth. Obviously, we're going to start on Instagram, as we always do. There's not really a lot on there, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the platform. As I know YouTube is her dominant platform, therefore it makes sense to channel most attention to the platform, as most of her Instagram posts are essentially just advertisements for her YouTube. Like this new ab workout live on YouTube, aesthetically pleasing Instagram, I'll give her that. And obviously she has a link tree. Oh, that is bloody green. She does produce a lot of free workout plans, which I do appreciate. It is nice to see somebody with such a large following pushing out free programs for people, especially as a means of encouraging beginners into the gym perhaps. I think that's quite admirable. The issues I have with some of these is realistically how much progress you're going to make in 2 weeks. I've said that so many times before. You'll lose a few pounds in 2 weeks, sure, but you're not going to get shredded for summer sort of thing. Flat Stomach Challenge, again, I'm not a massive fan of some of the titles as they are a bit unnecessarily clickbaity, as I kind of did cover with Lily Sabri beforehand. They're all targeting kind of shorter durations, which I assume is primarily to appeal to potentially a beginner audience perhaps. Each plan obviously links to a YouTube video, so if you look at her YouTube, she has many videos here, and they all kind of follow that similar structure I did speak about, being the shorter duration of like, do this for 2 weeks to get this, or do this for 10 minutes to get this, when realistically you're not going to get abs in 2 weeks if you're far away from that level of body fat. You're not going to lose mass amounts of weight in 2 weeks either, but I do understand they're quite good as a means of encouraging people to get started on their journey, which I have to appreciate, I have to respect. Before we really delve into some of her programs, obviously you know I must do one thing, and that one thing is on the head. I know the bunny hat was a big hit a few weeks ago, and here we are. Okay, I'm done. Back to the workouts. It's nice to see Chloe including warm-ups and cooldowns. I like that. And obviously she's saying do a few workouts per day. Most people say 3 workouts in a day is excessive, but considering these workouts are 10 to 15 minutes, I think it's very reasonable, it's very fair. It gets you active for a significant period of time, and it also encourages you to mix and match between other workouts to prevent you maybe getting bored from doing the same workout for 35 minutes. One of the issues I do have with Chloe and her content creation is the extent of the clickbait. Obviously, I know in her YouTube description she does talk about like a disclaimer surrounding, oh, you won't achieve this, whatever. Does anyone actually read that far into the disclaimer? A lot of people don't, although you probably should. A lot of people just want to see the title, the thumbnail, go for it, and expect to achieve the results they're being promised without really delving into too much information. So things like this, toned arms, no equipment, and defined abs in 10 minutes. So we know you're not going to get defined abs in 10 minutes. We also know you're not going to get toned arms very quickly. When it's a upper body and toned arms workout with no equipment, I'm going to be a bit curious. And things like this, I'm quite disappointed by. I would only do something like this if it were part of like my warm-up before doing like a shoulder workout or before doing any pressing motions like push-ups or whatever, just as a means of getting a bit of blood into the shoulders. It's not really going to do much other than burn, but again, we already know that just because you're hurting it doesn't mean you're working it. It's also a shame that the second movement I'm seeing in the workout is essentially a variation of what we've just seen. This will cause your shoulders to burn, no doubt, because they are under tension for a fair period of time. They're going up and down without resting. I've said this before, if I just contract my biceps for a significant period of time, like a minute, my biceps are really going to hurt. Doesn't mean anything's going to happen in there. They're just going to burn. I do like the kind of the percentage bar at the top. I think it's quite nice. Her editing is quite good. Her video production is quite nice. It is nice to see Chloe throw in some push-up variations as well. I think they're pretty decent upper body movement, especially if you're limited to no equipment. Her push-up's pretty solid. She's got a good range of motion. She's not half repping it. She's going to the floor. The variation itself, I'm not sure it's something I would do personally, but I know she's probably throwing things like this in as a means of just providing slightly different content so people don't get bored. A side push-up, I'm not sure if that's something I'm going to get behind. I get she's maybe trying to place a bit more emphasis on the tricep as like a unilateral movement, i.e. the left tricep in this case is doing a lot of the work to try and push up, but I'm just not sure it's a movement I would personally get behind, to be honest. The range of motion is very limited. I get she's being creative, it's just I think there are better alternatives. The workout seems to be full of quite a lot of plank variations as well. I know she's obviously going up and down to try and bring the triceps into it through like an element of almost doing a push-up sort of thing, and I know I've seen from her Discord and stuff that I know Chloe does love a plank or a plank variation, so this is indeed interesting. Although there are some okay movements in here, things like the arm flaps and the circles and the up and down, I don't see a place for those movements personally. Very quickly, must interrupt you for 23.5 seconds, a bit slower this time, but I'm not feeling particularly fast at the moment, not feeling lightning quick. If you do like the video, let me know you like the video by dropping a like on the video. 350 likes is the goal, and if we hit that goal, I'll create more videos like this. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel, it helps me out a lot, I do really appreciate it. If you want to make me go from one ear up to 2 ears up, click the bell next to it so you get notified every week when I upload a video, twice a week. And if you have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, drop it down below in the comment section for comment question of the week, and I shall do so. But now we've done that, we'll go back to discussing Chloe Ting. I know Chloe is qualified, which is why I am quite disappointed to see her promoting movements like that. As somebody who's qualified, you should know that there are better alternatives out there, and they don't have to be fancy or crazy. I do understand why she's doing it, obviously for the YouTube and for the people so they don't get bored and stuff, I respect that, but sometimes training can be a bit boring and sometimes it can be a bit repetitive. I feel like it's very much a selection of a movement for the burn rather than the benefit. Although qualifications are great, you know I love a qualification, they don't necessarily mean you know what you're talking about, because as someone who has done multiple degrees and someone who has qualified in the fitness industry as a personal trainer and other bits and bobs, they don't teach you a lot of stuff that you really need to know. And a lot of the stuff I was actually taught back in PT school, I would never promote now, and things I wouldn't have even promoted then. Just because you have a driving license doesn't mean you're a good driver. It just means that you can legally drive on the road. Same with PTs. Just because you have a qualification doesn't mean you know a lot or you're a good PT. It just means you can legally practice. And we know fitness isn't her first venture. A few years ago, Chloe was actually a fashion and travel creator. One thing that has remained consistent with Chloe, which I do appreciate, is the quality of her production. Alright, let's have a look at another one of her workouts. This one's interesting because it's a side booty workout. You know I hate the terminology of side booty, upper booty, lower booty. That implies you can isolate a singular area when you can merely place more emphasis on it. I know she's doing this alongside Bret Contreras, who is known as the glute guy, and who is someone that I will be covering in the future at some point. I'm backing this, to be honest. I'd like a reverse lunge. Good range of motion. I think it's a great movement for the glutes. She's literally tickling her knee on the floor, which is fantastic. A glute bridge variation, again, another solid movement. I cannot complain. I think these are both movements I would incorporate personally, or the movements I would suggest people do if they are looking to grow their glutes. So I'd probably suggest maybe holding the peak contraction for a bit longer, so pause it at the top. No, it's good stuff, it's good stuff. This is something I'm maybe not too fond of. I don't really like these fire hydrant variations. I do get from home, it's fair enough, it kind of replicates kind of the machines that you would use at the gym, but again, I think there are better alternatives. When looking at like home workouts, I would maybe warm up with something like this or finish with something like this, but the meat of my workout would be glute bridge variations, lunge variations, squat variations, including things like split squats, which I know she's including some of those throughout. I would like to see a great emphasis placed on them. This is a movement I do kind of like because it replicates some of like the reverse hyperextension, which is one of my favorite movements, and a piece of equipment that a lot of people don't have access to, but this is a good alternative, I would say. Although I don't really agree with the terminology of side booty, round booty and hips workout, I do think the workout itself is actually pretty solid. It's interesting to see that the workout I've been most impressed by from Chloe has been a workout in which she has collaborated with someone who's very well known for their glute workouts in the industry. Whereas if you go to things like this where she is doing this solo without collaborating with somebody else, there's not a single multi-joint movement in this workout. They're all contraction-based movements which don't go through a massive range of motion, and they're very much what I consider like burning movements that aren't necessarily particularly effective, but they just lead you to have a very sore bottom because you're contracting the muscle for a significant period of time, therefore leading you to believe that it's working a lot more than it likely is. Another thing I don't like is the promotion of things like the hip dips. To me, I find that to be somewhat negative, and the reason I say that, when you're encouraging people to essentially change their shape by getting hip dips tips and whatnot, that can then in turn lead them to believe that perhaps they aren't good enough, or perhaps there's something wrong with their shape, or perhaps they're feeling a lack of satisfaction due to their inability to create the shape that is being implied here. We all have our body, and we all given a genetic makeup that we must work with. You can't necessarily change the shape, you can just work on that shape and build on it and enhance it however you see fit. That's just the element of clickbait I'm not particularly happy with, because it can again promote unrealistic expectations and maybe lead to people potentially feeling bad about themselves for not achieving those potentially unrealistic expectations, despite the disclaimer at the bottom of the description. But as I said before, it's just a shame that the only really good glute workouts I've seen from Chloe have been in collaboration with Bret. Regardless of the appreciation and respect I have for somebody encouraging others to live a healthier lifestyle, there is an element of danger there, in the sense that if you encourage people to live a healthier lifestyle but maybe point them in the direction of misinformation and what could potentially be deemed as a incorrect or negative path, that can lead them to pursue that path further and then spiral. Great, you've got them started, but have you got them started going a suboptimal direction, let's say? Maybe place a bit more emphasis on the elaboration surrounding you can't actually target the side booty. She's doing the first thing really well, which is getting people started. It's just the next thing that is maybe not so good, where she's maybe providing a bit of misinformation or a bit of information that could be interpreted incorrectly. What do you think of this, Truff? What do you think of this? He didn't really care much for the hat. You're a bloody gazelle, Truffle. I love you. Oh, he loves a cuddle. He loves a cuddle, don't you? I do get that a lot of people love what Chloe's doing, which again is fantastic. You've got to find what works for you. Although she may not be somebody that I would personally recommend. For home workouts, I would probably lean towards people like Sydney Cummings and Caroline. And for gym workouts, I would maybe look at like Hannah Oberg and Lucy Davis Fit. But if Chloe's your person, you do you. I'm not trying to cause offense. I never am. But I have had some quite questionable encounters with a few of her fan base. Not only from the video I posted a while back, as I said before, it's not a video I'm particularly happy with. The interactions I have had with Chloe's fan base have been quite negative to us. At the end of the day, I'm never going to remove comments unless you're attacking somebody else, which I deem to be very inappropriate. Attack me all you want. It does not bother me in the slightest. If you attack somebody else in the comment section, that's not going to fly. You're gone. I'm trying to build a positive community that essentially encourages others, and I want the comment section to be a safe space for people. So regardless of whether you agree or disagree with what I have to say, and regardless of whether I agree or disagree with what you have to say, I always want there to be an element of respect in the comment section. So if you're disrespectful to me, I can tolerate that. If you're disrespectful to other people in my comment section, you're in the bin. Yeah, I've had quite a few negative encounters with a lot of Chloe's fan base. They've said some things which I deem to be quite inappropriate at times. They've come to Chloe's aid and defended Chloe in a manner that I deem to be almost like a little bit concerning, maybe a bit too extreme. Obviously, I get you want to defend people that have helped you want to defend the influences that you care about. The way in which they have done so, I deem to be a bit like, ooh, this follows through into her Discord. I'm in the Discord. It's very censored in there. You cannot talk about other things outside Chloe or just personal things. If you mention another creator or mention something that disagrees with what Chloe's doing, like someone posted a video about, I think it was like James Smith, and he featured a picture of Chloe saying like these workouts aren't great, and within a second it was deleted. You see it for a second, it's gone by the moderating team, and you go onto the Reddit, you see things like this. I love Chloe Ting's workouts. I'm currently doing one of her challenges, which I love, but I don't really know how I feel about the Discord. I have the particular issues with the amount of limitations you have on there in regards to what you can discuss. A slight problem is hearing the same messages and 2D positivity on there, and the feeling of a lack of an actual community on there. I had issues with the repetition of things. I found the same thing, I rarely go on there anymore. I think there's almost like an element of Chloe might know that in some cases what she is doing can be deemed as like questionable, and a bit like, there is a reason why a lot of content creators don't agree with what she's doing. Do I agree with what she's doing? There's another question. In some cases, I'm like, this workout's not bad. Like the ones she did with Bret, I thought were actually pretty decent. But then a lot of cases when she is left to her own devices, not all the time, but in a few cases they are consumed by clickbait, and it does imply a lot of false things like you can achieve this in 2 weeks, despite what the disclaimer says. And a lot of the movements in that case can be quite questionable, like the arm flaps and things like that I just don't align with. Chloe is not one I would personally recommend people follow. Again, I appreciate she's doing good things by encouraging people to get into fitness, but if she is veering them down a potentially suboptimal path, you go further and further down the rabbit hole of believing misinformation and believing claims that aren't backed by evidence and science. It's really hard to then change your mindset and actually be like, oh, maybe this is better. So despite me having appreciation for Chloe encouraging people to live a healthier lifestyle, I do think the lack of information and lack of education can be quite negative. But again, those are just my thoughts and my opinions. I'm never hating on someone. I'm never trying to disrespect anybody. That's not what I'm trying to achieve here, not what I'm trying to promote. I'm merely trying to educate and hopefully entertain people as well. And now is the end of the video. Therefore, I shall do comment question of the week. Why do I put myself through things like hip thrusts and lunges when I know they hurt me? A very appropriate question actually, considering they are two of my favourite movements when looking at glute development. And that's exactly why you do it, Sarah. You do it because they're good for the bottom. If you're trying to build the glutes and build the lower body, heavy movements are your friend. That actually kind of touched on an element that Chloe is neglecting, is her workouts you can't progressively overload in many cases. And by that I mean do more each week, heavier weight, more reps like volume, things like that. And progressive overload is a fundamental principle of gaining muscle. So if you can't progressively overload a movement, is that a movement that should remain in your program? Probably not. As I said earlier on in the video, 350 likes is the goal. That'll be bloody fantastic. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel by clicking the red button down below and the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week. If you have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, drop a question in the comment section below and I shall do so for comment question of the week. Click the link in the description, download the free program template if you so wish. But that is it. That is the video. Thank you for tolerating my headwear. Thank you for tolerating my flappy ears. And thank you for tolerating the video.